people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would seem that all systems are a-go for an Inoue versus MJ Akhmadaliev showdown later on this year. The deal is quote-unquote done for after the Cardenas fight in May. Arguably the best fight in the super bantamweight division at this time. Naoya Inoue is not the type of fighter to overlook an opponent. Champions of that pedigree get to where they are for a reason. Each assignment is prepared for with due diligence and opponents are dealt with sufficiently. Should Inoue get rid of Ramon Cardenas, as expected, on May 4th, as part of the Cinco de Mayo weekend, he has another challenge waiting in the wings. A challenge that some see as his most dangerous of all the contenders. That isn't conjecture, because according to the manager of Murajan Akhmadaliev, a September deal is all but delivered. Yeah, we have a deal pretty much done. We're finalizing it on paper with Top Rank, and the Japanese side, the Japanese promotion, Vadim Kornilov exclusively revealed to Boxing News. Heel Akhmadaliev fight in May on Matchroom on one of Eddie's shows in the United States, just as an in-between fight, just to stay busy. That's the agreement we have, and that's the deal we made. And then September 14th, he's supposed to fight Inoue in Japan and in a new arena that they're opening up. I'm very confident. I believe that Murajan will do well. I believe that's going to be a very, very good fight. Another competitive fight. Obviously, since it's in Japan, everything is going to be on Inoue's side, and it's part of the business. But we're going to do everything we can to win that fight. As always, even though he will be in Saudi alongside Dmitry Bivol on a potential future cruiserweight scouting mission to watch Badu Jack, there are currently no plans to observe Inoue from ringside. The television at home will suffice. We know what to expect from Inoue. Murajan is not like the other guys he's fought recently. It will be a real fight between the two best names of the 122-pound division, Inoue and Akhmadaliev. Yeah, that's what I think, echoed Kornilov to Boxing News before confirming that the deal is done and waiting to be inked. We're dealing with Top Rank. We're partners. Once we have a deal, we have a deal. I don't see any issues unless somebody doesn't, I mean, to me it's a deal, he added. A done deal. So much was made of Inoue not fighting MJ sooner. I knew that eventually he would get around to it because he's not the kind of fighter who avoids challenges. And what he was doing, it wasn't avoiding MJ Akhmadaliev. He had other mandatories and other issues came up. Luis Nery was the first mandatory he had to satisfy. Sam Goodman was the second, and we all saw what kept happening with Sam. Postponement after postponement, injury after injury, a late replacement here, and a stay busy opponent there. But if you've been following Inoue, as long as I have, you'll know that he's got every intention of fighting MJ, but he's gonna do it on his time, not MJ's. Nothing about his track record tells the story of a fighter who avoids tough fights. His track record shows the opposite. The entire situation was weaponized by Inoue's critics in the West, who wanted something negative to say about him, but there's only so much you could say. That is, up until this started up. So all of a sudden, MJ becomes a manufactured bogeyman because of the perceptions of a few who think Inoue is afraid of him. Inoue is avoiding him. Just for Vadim to come out and say, the deal is done. Now they just have to both hold up their ends of the bargain since they both have interim fights coming up. MJ Akhmadaliev, the former champion and the standout amateur, will present a tougher challenge than Inoue's last 2 or 3 opponents, I think. Yeah, I think he'll put up a good fight, but I don't have him pegged as the guy who's going to give Inoue his first professional loss. It'd be a big upset, pretty big upset if he did.
And you know, if you could see upsets coming, well then they wouldn't be upsets now, would they? That's what makes them upsets.
That most people don't expect them. The boxing community at large, as well as the odds makers, the sports books, and it would be an upset if MJ beat Inoue, but once again, I don't get the sense that he's the guy that's gonna do that.
I have Inoue beating him. I have Inoue stopping him.
Haven't forgotten what he looked like with Marlon Tapales, a common opponent between him and Inoue, and I haven't forgotten how he looked with Chile's own Jose Velasquez. He didn't look good in that fight either.
It'll be even worse with Inoue. That's what I think.
And that's at 122. As it pertains to Stephen Fulton, WBC champion at 126, preliminary reports seem to indicate that so soon after having picked up the WBC title in the Brandon Figueroa rematch, Stephen Fulton may be leaving the featherweight division in his very next fight to take on WBC super featherweight champion O'Shaquie Foster
on the undercard of Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach 2.
And another example of what we talked about in my previous video, how the PBC and Top Rank have formed an alliance that will see them doing a lot more business together moving forward.
As a response to Turki Al Sheikh's entry into the boxing space to pose some competition, do their own thing amongst themselves, which I'm not complaining about, by the way.
Preliminary reactions to the potential matchup are mostly good, though some are using it as a means to slight Naoya Inoue.
Slight him how?
Twitter user that goes by the name Easy Raw Boxing said, Fulton is doing what Inoue refuses to.
Huh?
To which veteran boxing scribe Jake Donovan responded, along with several others, even if this fight happens, it would be Scooter's third weight division. He's still one behind Inoue, who will likely be on his fifth by year's end. What exactly is he doing that Inoue isn't?
Not sure.
Another Twitter user that goes by the name Damien said, like what? Moving up to his third division? Inoue's already past that. Moving up to fight a champion? He's done that more than once. Dude Man said, Inoue moved up to his third division 7 years ago.
Another Twitter user that goes by the name Broner Pound for Pound said, woefully stone dumb take. Nice work.
Stone cold stupid.
And the hits just keep on coming. How many divisions did Inoue move up in his career so far? What a stupid take.
So what was Easy Raw Boxing trying to imply by saying that Stephen Fulton is doing something that Inoue isn't doing? I'd wager he was talking about Gervonta Davis, that he's moving up to 130, where some people have proposed in the past that Inoue moved to that division or as far up as lightweight to take on Gervonta. I think what Easy meant is that's what Stephen Fulton is doing, except that's not what he's doing. He's not moving up for Gervonta, he's moving up for O'Shaquie Foster.
And it doesn't help that you're talking about a guy that Inoue beat. You understand that whatever Stephen Fulton goes on to do, whatever he accomplishes, whatever accolades he amasses, it just makes Inoue look better because Inoue beat him, and he beat him easy.
So that when a Brandon Figueroa struggles with him, or an O'Shaquie Foster in this instance, it makes Inoue look good because he didn't. He didn't struggle. He beat Stephen easy, and he stopped him.
But that sounded a lot better in your head than it looks in print.
Accenting what I was telling you about, that there are some here in the West that are desperate for something negative to say about Naoya Inoue because underneath it all, they just don't like the idea that a Japanese guy might be thought of as one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. You want to know what their issue is? Underneath it all, that's what their real issue is.
They want the focus to be on the fighters that they like, the American fighters, the Mexican fighter or the black fighter. They don't like the idea of a Japanese fighter entering into that exclusive space, that elite space.
But how stupid do you have to be to use a guy that Inoue trounced as an example of what Inoue's not doing?
Stephen Fulton would be at only his third weight. Inoue's already at his fourth, going on his fifth.
I think that a better example of what Easy Raw is trying to describe would have been Terrence Crawford moving up to super middle for Canelo, but Terrence is only jumping up 2 weight classes for that fight.
And that's a lot, by the way.
Inoue would be moving up, what, 3 or 4 weight classes for Gervonta? Because that's who I think this was about, moving up for Gervonta.
When 122 is Inoue's fourth weight. 126 would be his fifth.
In any event, Stephen Fulton may be moving up to 130 so soon after having become a champion at 126 for an Oshaki Foster fight. A great scalp if he can collect it, but stylistically, it's not a fight I'm crazy about, because both Stephen Fulton and Oshaki Foster are defensive specialists. They're not artillery fighters, neither of them.
They're both thinkers, they're both movers, they're both boxers, counterpunchers.
Stylistically, that doesn't make for a great fight unless someone breaks character, unless someone decides to hit the gas and take it to the other guy. Now, which one of these two that's gonna be, I don't know, but because Oshaki Foster has been at 130 a lot longer than Stephen,
I guess you'd have to give him the edge in size, the edge in power.
We'll see how it shakes out if it materializes. And if by some chance Stephen Fulton can win this one, pound for pound talks are in order. He may enter into the pound for pound space because Stephen Fulton beat two champions at 122, one at 126, and if he beats another at 130, that's pound for pound stuff, folks.
It's too bad he didn't get the unified titles with anybody at 126 before this opportunity came around.
Perhaps it's because nobody made him an offer. Angelo Leo is otherwise preoccupied. Rafael Espinoza also, he's got a fight coming up. The only available champion is Nick Ball, but Nick Ball just fought TJ Doheny.
There was an expressed interest on both sides, an expressed interest from Stephen and Nick to do a fight with each other, but unless somebody sends out an offer, it's all talk.
If an opportunity to move up in weight and challenge Oshaki for his green belt comes before that does, hey,
do what you gotta do.
And now as it pertains to another one of Vadim Kornilov's fighters, his star fighter, Dmitry Bivol, who's interested in a potential Badu-Jack clash. According to his manager, undisputed light heavyweight king Dmitry Bivol has expressed a surprising interest in facing WBC World Cruiserweight champion Badu-Jack. The 34-year-old dethroned his rival, Artur Beterbiev, with a majority decision win last month after losing their first encounter by the same margin. But while a trilogy between the two formidable operators appears to be the likely next step, Bivol, 24-1 with 12 knockouts, and his manager, Vadim Kornilov, have begun to explore alternative options. From Kornilov's perspective, a third fight with Artur Beterbiev would take priority over a possible showdown with WBC mandatory challenger David Benavidez, with a purse bid for the Benavidez fight scheduled for April 8th, though Bivol would more than likely be forced to vacate his green and gold strap.
We want to keep hold of all the belts, but if we have to lose one to follow His Excellency's plan for Dmitry Bivol, no problem as well.
In any event, the talented technician has seemingly allowed his mind to wander in recent weeks, with Jack 28-3 with 3 draws and 17 knockouts, emerging as an unexpected option. The multi-division titleist claimed the WBC Cruiserweight crown at the beginning of 2023, 2 years ago, flooring Lunga Makabu twice before halting proceedings in the 12th. Since then, the Ripper has remained out of the ring, but will nonetheless put his belt on the line against his mandatory challenger, Ryan Rositsky, on May 3rd, featuring on the undercard of Canelo vs. Skull. And while Kornilov has tried to steer his fighter towards a lucrative rematch with Canelo, it seems that Bivol is more interested in seeing how Jack looks. In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Dimitri's been talking about the cruiserweight situation a lot, Kornilov said. He feels very confident in moving up to cruiser. Dmitry was like, I want to see Badu-Jack when he fights Rositsky in Riyadh. I didn't expect that, but he wanted to see the Badu-Jack fight. That's something interesting we talked about. With Jack reaching the age of 41, Bivol is not the only fighter to sense that he is there for the taking, with former world champions like Chris Billum-Smith and Callum Smith too having recently targeted a fight with the veteran.
So here's a bit of backstory. Dmitry Bivol and Badu-Jack were supposed to fight a long time ago, back when Andre Ward had just retired, Badu Jack was elevated to full champion for all of 15 seconds, and Dmitry Bivol was his mandatory challenger. But Badu Jack elected to chuck the WBA title in the air and go after then WBC champion Adonis Stevenson.
And that was in circa 2017, I want to say. A long time ago, what seems like ancient history.
That's how Dmitry Bivol became WBA champion.
He ended up fighting for the vacant title after Jack chucked it in the air and focused on Adonis Stevenson. So many years later, it would seem like they're on a collision course, except I don't know that Badu Jack is going to beat Ryan.
Ryan Rosicki, his mandatory challenger, the guy that he's fighting on the undercard of Canelo versus Skull. Ryan Rosicki's been keeping active, unlike Badu Jack. And Ryan Rosicki is a full cruiserweight. He's never been anything else, unlike Badu Jack. Several years younger than Badu Jack and naturally bigger. Not as experienced.
Not as decorated across as many weight classes as Badu Jack, but there is such a thing as too much experience, that perhaps you've been around too long, Badu, and this might be when it backfires. You're 41 years old, you hadn't fought in 2 years.
Ryan's not here for a waltz. Ryan's gonna try to go through you, punch through you. That's the kind of fighter he is. He's a pressure guy, a slugger.
For an aging fighter who's spent a lot of time off, a physical fighter, a physical fight, that's not good. He's gonna push the envelope, try to make you feel your age. He's gonna try to stop you. Do you have the timing, the reflexes, the sharpness, and the movement in those 41-year-old legs to keep Ryan off of you?
I don't know.
So when you tell me that Dmitry Bivol wants to go have a look at Badu Jack, essentially scout him, I don't know that Jack is going to win his next fight. And if he doesn't, you may end up having to fight Ryan for that WBC title, who's nowhere near as good a boxer as a Dmitry Bivol. Once again, not as decorated and not as cerebral, but he is bigger. And so Dmitry seems to be considering a move up to cruiserweight, likely because he's been at light heavy for such a long time. He's been a career light heavyweight, and he's in his mid-30s now, so maybe getting down to 175 isn't as easy as it used to be.
Not saying that he can't, but not having to make 175, that could be a breath of fresh air for him. He still has one or some options there, a fight with Callum Smith, a fight with David Benavidez, a fight with Anthony Yard.
Those are the guys that he hasn't fought yet at 175, because between him and Artur, they've basically cleaned the division out. But those are the guys that Dmitry hasn't fought yet. All those would just be title defenses, though, whereas moving up to cruiser and taking on Badu Jack would make him a two-weight champion, which to Dmitry seems more prestigious.
How do you think he'd do up there?
He might do all right. I mean, you see Zurdo Ramirez, he's a unified champion at cruiser. And if he can do that, maybe Dmitry can do one better.
Zurdo used to compete at 168.
He's a unified champion at cruiser. Dmitry might go up there, and you never know. I don't mind the idea of him going up to cruiser.
Still some good fights left at light heavy.
He's pretty much climbed the mountaintop as far as the light heavyweight division. Whatever else he does is just defenses of the titles that he already won, whereas the cruiserweight division would be a new challenge, a bigger one, against bigger men, bigger guys than he's used to. Though let's not put the cart before the horse. They have to finalize the trilogy, Dmitry has to win it, and then after that, we'll see what he does, we'll see where he goes.
And shortly, we'll see if Badu Jack can stay WBC Cruiserweight Champion, because that's the guy that Dmitry's looking at.